Going on YouTube, Thursday, July 17th. Trade recap. We had basically two dubs today, but I would say one break even and one dub. A little $200 day on the top step. Recovered yesterday's loss, and a little bit more. So we're up on the week about 239. Not mad about that. Let me just get straight into the trade, and I'll get into all that profit stuff after. All right, so going into the day on both indices, I'm seeing bullishness. We got ES tapping into our weekly fair value gap target, which was right here. And then after I see that, I want to see expansion. So when I see that price is like in the middle of the zone, just took, this is major sell side sweep. Put in this low. We have an SMT at it. If I do this, we have an SMT at that low. I believe, what's it called? ES took it. NASDAQ didn't. So I was like, all right, wait, let me make sure. Yeah, ES took it, NASDAQ didn't. So I was going into the session, I wanted to trade NASDAQ. So I was like, all right, we'll see what kind of happens here. This is our open. And then this is where I shifted my trade to ES for the first one. So we get market open, and we immediately throw in this SMT, taking out these lows. And I'm like, okay, I'm bullish on the day. We see this SMT down here. Time to see some expansion. There's no 1 minute trade in here for me to these highs. There's no 1 minute trade. There is a 1 minute trade, sorry. So I'm trying to see these highs and then, up here, full buy side on ES, since we put in a, shorter time frame bullish SMT. So I was like, all right, bet. So we long the rejection of the high of this fair value up. So I thought it was super bullish. I was like, all right, price is just going to start running like crazy. And we're going to go. So I enter on a 2 fair value gap setup. This is our first presented, which is a breakaway. And then we had our regular fair value gap. So enter, we push up. We get to like 1R. This is my first take profit, 0.5 of the daily wick. We don't get it. So I'm like, all right, fuck. I went break even once I saw that we had, if you look, we have a 5 minute 2 fair value gap sequence. So once I saw this 5 minute rejection, I just put my stop loss underneath this 5 minute low, which also was break even. So that trade was break even. And this is what I was kind of fearing. I was, looking at this 15 and I was like, we might just want to come in and fill both of these fair value gaps in this order block and go higher so we can get some momentum basically. So then we did that. We did not get stopped on ES, thankfully. We just got tagged out break even. So then we tap into first presented of that day, of today. And then we have this like strange retracement on NASDAQ. And, I'm looking at it. I'm like, it's almost like there's nothing here. There's nothing here to really go off of. We just kind of dip down into here. But if you look here, we have one breakaway, 2 minute fair value gap, and our other one. And I wanted to see this one be respected and head lower if we were to be bearish. And we broke through it, tapped in the upper one. So then what did we get on the 3 minute? We got a 2 fair value gap setup. That happened perfectly. However, this is the one thing I will say I did have a mistake on. I kind of failed to feel confident about it. I almost felt like I was second guessing my entry. So my entry ended up being about like right here somewhere. So I ended up second guessing my entry pretty hard, and I didn't, because I don't want to be FOMO longing this. But on top of that, like the liquidity, it was kind of a struggle for me to grasp that we just wanted internal liquidity, fill in some inefficiency. Remember, inefficiency and liquidity basically. So we wanted to fill in this 15-minute fair value gap and then start to head higher. So I was like, all right, we're good to go longs. Let's long this puppy. And then we also had a 2 minute fair value gap sequence right here. We did tap into the lower one, but I let it paint outside the lines, as our macro sweep. So that was a good day. It was a good day. Our 2 fair value gaps played out very well. It's how I'm managing to, work around them, because if you look here on the 5 minute, we do have a 2 fair value gap sequence with rejection, and I could have pyramided an entry and took a loss there. However, I realized that, if we're consolidating like this, it doesn't necessarily look good. Like we're not just gonna leave that consolidation, in my opinion, and be jolly. We're gonna want to come down and sweep. So that's why we're lagging. Price and time and price need to be coordinated, not just price. You feel me? So came out, took that low, stopped this break even. Then we took a re-entry right about there. With no SMTs or anything, just straight with that bullish bias to the highs, and that is all-time highs on NASDAQ. So, very, very clean day, very clean 2 fair value gap day. I do wish I will backtest today, most likely, our change in the states and basically long entries based off of the Fred model. So SMT, change in the state, inverse fair value gap, and long. Because today I've seen it happen a couple times throughout the week, and it was really good. And I also want to go to ES on the 5, I believe it's ES on the 5 second, or this is NQ. Let me see who real quick here. Yes, it is ES. Of course, it doesn't want me to. Okay, come on now. Oh, now it wants to be different. That doesn't make any sense. Alright, so now we get our ES 5 second, and I want to go down to here, and I want to show you our... Wait, what? What was it on then? I'm so confused. Oh, wait, never mind. 9:30. Was it on the 5 second? I swear there was an entry here. Maybe on the 15 second or something. There was a 2 for value gap setup at this SMT. I just don't know where exactly. I don't know if it was on ES or NQ. And why does it do that every time I want to see? Let me see real quick. It's not in the 15 second. It's right here somewhere. I know it is. I'm gonna find it real quick. Just give me a second. Maybe I was just seeing some stuff. You feel me? Oh, no. Yeah. I wasn't tripping. Okay, so right here is where we get our SMT. We take that low. We don't show on bullishness on NQ. Then we have our first value right there. Then we have our second one right there, and we tap into it. That is a 0 drawdown entry. That is a point, basically drawdown. And then you could have targeted the highs up there. So, going into the future, you need to be looking for these smaller time frame SMTs and these smaller time frame, 2 for value gap setups after an SMT, because that's when prices, it's looking. You're not going to see that on the 1 minute. That's other people's strategy. That's changing the state. That's inverse fair value gap. That's fair value gap. That's all that stuff. Order blocks, breakers. That's all that stuff on the 1 minute. But then once you get on that lower time frame, you can identify that 2 for value gap setup. That'll get you going. So yeah, just going over the week, I think you can kind of see now the difference between trading emotionally, over risking, versus sitting down and being like, all right, well, we got to get, we got to find consistency. That's the thing that I want to show myself, and so I can watch, because I watch every one of these videos back, so I can watch and see, consistency being built. I want to see my 2 for value gap strategy build consistency and good discipline, risking max $150 a day, and then basically aiming for $200 days, just so I can slowly come out of drawdown. I'm not looking for crazy returns. I don't care about that anymore. That's what I cared about, and then look what it got me. Now I realize that being slow and steady will win the race. I'm only up $200 this week, but tomorrow I could be up another 200. But yeah, no, keep in mind this is 2 accounts. So, I'm aiming for those 5 $200 days. And once I come out of drawdown, back up to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, a bunch of zeros, I'm gonna start risking $250 once I have those 5 days of $200, because if I have those 5 days of $200 or 200 X amount, because it might be like 300, 200, 200, because I still need 3 more. So that's $600, and that'll still leave me with some drawdown. But what the heck happened? It'll still leave me with, a couple hundred of drawdown, but still, it's showing me that consistency, what I want to see, Am I willing to really sit in that market and be consistent, disciplined, follow my rules, and really figure out what's going on? Not just willy-nilly trading, over risking, and just feeling emotional, because that was a tragic week, and putting it back and now seeing how I can be, I guess, 2 for 3 on the week, is good, but the reason why my trades are such little, I would say, return is that all I'm aiming for is this $200 days. I want 5 of them. I want to show consistency, and then once I come out of drawdown, or I have these 5 $200 days and I feel solid about them, there's not like 4 losses in between or like 2 of them. It's just like, green, red, green, 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 red. It's like, consistency. Then I'll start to size up. But I like right now, where I'm going, what I'm doing, it's drawdown, but like I said, like that's what I like to see. I want me to prove to myself that I can get out of this. You feel me? So yeah, that was basically the trade today. Nothing crazy, just keeping it simple. One thing is that I was getting pretty emotional, like seeing price retrace, because remember I entered late, so I was like kicking myself for that. Like, why would I enter really late? But then once I saw this candle and we got this the break above, I went break even. I was like, I'm not gonna be leaving risk on the table when we take out this high again. So we did, kind of scare me, but then I realized that our macro's coming, we're rallying. But yeah, that was the trading day. Just still looking at this monthly calendar, I'm not disappointed, but I definitely think we're gonna be green or at least break even coming out of there. I just had a bad first week. This is a great example. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I kind of need to really get that into my brain. First week is what, thinking about profits, money. How am I gonna make money on this bitch to where I'm already chilling. But that is not it. That's not it. When I think that way, everything goes out the window. But when I decide to sit down and not even take a trade on Monday, just be relaxed and be like, all right, some days I'm not gonna find a trade. Some days I'll find a trade and it goes against my direction. Just it wasn't feeling right. Yesterday was it wasn't a bad loss in my opinion. This wasn't a bad loss either. And look what happened after that. Straight tilt mode, fucked. This was I would still say a good loss, and we just recovered. There's nothing really going crazy about. So yeah, we'll see how tomorrow goes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you for tomorrow's AM session review, but also I might do a backtesting session in the PM. Let me actually do this real quick. Lock me out, but I just feel like I never do lockouts on Top Step X because I felt like it was so cheesy and shit. Like, lock me out of the account. But now when I lock myself, I'm like, bro, like I did my job for today, and that's just how it's gonna be. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna get back to it, hit the gym, get busy, and I will see you maybe in the PM session for a backtest session, but definitely tomorrow for a New York session review. So I will see you later. Peace out.